Hello and welcome to this round 5 of GP Atlanta. I'm Tim Willoughby, joined by Hall of Famer Frank Karsten, and we've got a couple of power players here. Gary Wong up against Sam Black. That 16 next to his name means that he's currently ranked 16th in the world, and right before the Pro Tour, I'm sure he's put in plenty of practice in this format, kicking things off there with kind of a nice one, a little bit dangerous in some formats, but Fretwork Colony starts off as a 1-1, gets bigger real quick, and as long as you're not facing up against some of the malfunctions of the format and similar, it can be a real pain in the neck.
Absolutely, especially on turn 2, when you are on the play, it can grow out of hand quite quickly. Just a +1/+1 counter at the beginning of every upkeep. You do lose a life to it at the same time. So indeed, a bit risky against the malfunction or also revoke privileges that you mentioned. But it can do a lot of work. Now Sam, he was happy to just trade it for the Narnam Cobra. When he has gear per guide on turn 3, that is fair. This will mean that Sam can now attack with the Gearboard Guide. That's not being blocked by the Narnam Cobra. And also, yeah, the Fretwork Colony. When you play against white or blue with these lock it down enchantments, might as well just offer it up for any trade you can find. Choo choo! There is the Renegade Freighter.
Yeah, we certainly like that one. And Sam Black is one of the people that is definitely worth watching in this sort of a tournament, because we know that he'll have put in the effort in order to make sure that he's got the right deck to be able to maximize his chances here. Propeller Pioneer coming along and making a servo. I've been really interested to find with the Fabricate cards that it's not a foregone conclusion to always make a servo with them. It's a bit of a mix. Here we did see Gary Wong making a servo token, and that kind of makes sense when there's so many big creatures from Sam.
Yeah, all in all, I think I've been making servo tokens perhaps 60 or 70% of the time. Usually it's better to spread out your power and toughness between multiple creatures, because, well, then a single removal spell doesn't hurt as much. And also there are a lot of Artifact Matters cards in the format that care about the number of artifacts that you have on the battlefield, or that trigger whenever an artifact enters. The servos do help with that. But
Iron League Steed got bigger though, so it's not 100%. Iron League Steed, one of the very few creatures with Fabricate that is not an artificer, because it is in fact just an artifact.
Yeah, Sam is essentially saying, well, if you want to trade for it, you just have to push both creatures in front of it. And given that Sam is already a bit ahead in the race, he's attacking. He would rather have the board be clear rather than having a 1/1 extra on his side of the battlefield. That's probably not really gonna attack all that profitably.
So here we see the first piece of mana fixing from Gary Wong's deck. It is a 3-color deck, and with Wild Wanderer he's able to search up for an island there. At some point he is going to be looking to get blue mana in play, because the cards that he has within blue are all really powerful. Aether Squall Ancient, Padim Consul of Innovation, Shrewd Negotiation. Any one of these, as and when he gets a chance to cast it, will have a big impact on the board. And I think that one of the challenges for a lot of people in this format is figuring out how much they can afford to splash.
Yeah, splashing the double blue Aether Squall Ancient is definitely ambitious, but with 3 islands and 2 Wild Wanderer, if you expect that the games go long, you'll probably have enough draw steps to find the second blue source for it. And it is really powerful when you can put it down.
So a straightforward Karun attack here from Sam Black. He knows that he just wants to get busy in the red zone, and the train certainly does that. Following it up with a Picata Pillarbug, even with black mana open, in order to be able to provide lifelink for it if needed.
Sam also had the option of just crewing up the Renegade Freighter with the Pillarbug, but chose to just do it with the Guide. And yep, there is the second island. Aether Squall Ancient in the house.
Now it costs 8 energy to bounce all of the non-land permanents in play apart from Aether Squall Ancient. Aether Squall Ancient does make 3 energy each upkeep, each of your upkeeps naturally, so it doesn't need too much help to get there, but realistically right now it's simply a 6/6 flyer, and a 6/6 flyer is still a big deal.
Yep, it will be able to block the Renegade Freighter even if it attacks and becomes a 5/4. No problem. And I don't think Sam Black has some ways in his hands to get past it.
Yeah, with just 4 mana, he's a little bit shy of being able to cast some of the bigger black removal spells. Just a filigree familiar here. That'll get him some life. But for now, he's just got to sit back and watch as Gary Wong gains 3 energy before he even draws for the turn. And at some point, all of those creatures might be vanishing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Ether Scroll Ancient is particularly good with some energy-generating creatures, right? When you make it a bit easier. Well, there's one. That's a Bristling Hydra. So now that's 6 energy. This means that Gary could bounce everything other than the Ether Scroll Ancient on the next turn. And then, well, he also bounces back the Bristling Hydra, so you can replay that, get some more energy, and possibly just activate the ability on the Ancient every turn.
Bristling Hydra is a nice one just in and of itself. A 4/3 for 4 is a great rate, and then its energy ability, it needs a little help to use it more than once, but you can pay 3 energy to put a +1/+1 counter on it and give it hexproof, making it a very, very difficult creature to remove.
Mm-hmm. Now let's see, can Sam set up any profitable attacks? That Renegade Freighter can certainly get in there, becomes a 5/4 trample. So Gary Wong likely has to line up some blocker for it. On the other hand, Sam also sees the potential of the Ether Scroll Ancient being used. It'll bounce all creatures. So if Sam would actually keep his Renegade Freighter around on the battlefield, then he can ensure that he has a threat on the table that survives the board sweep. So that's a reason not to attack or trade it off yet.
How important is the Girapur Guide ability on this board?
It doesn't do all that much. It says that a certain creature, when you spend 3 mana on the activated ability, cannot be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. And well, there are only 2 on Gary Wong's side. And if Sam had activated it on the Renegade Freighter, then Gary could just easily block, or actually double block, perhaps with Bristling Hydra and Wild Wanderer. It doesn't really seem to help all that much, especially when Sam can use the mana to add some more creatures to the battlefield.
So a straightforward double block here, enough to make sure that that train will get derailed for now.
On the other hand, if you force the block by the Bristling Hydra, then at least you deny Gary Wong to set up some kind of recursion, right? With the Hydra generating a lot of energy to be used for future Ether Scroll Ancient activations. So there's something to be said for activating the Girapur Guide as well. Sam chose not to do that though.
We somehow have a 6-sided die with a number 9 on it. That's the amount of energy that Gary Wong has to work with here. And that enough that means that, I mean, the Hydra is a big threat. The Ether Scroll Ancient is an even bigger threat. And there are some big attacks coming in here for Gary Wong. Sam Black, as much as he's been ahead on the board for pretty much the entire game, he's facing down a rare here that looks likely to turn things around.
Yeah, Sam was easily winning until, I think it was turn 6 actually. Gary Wong rammed into the Ether Scroll Ancient with the Wild Wanderer. Yeah, turn 6, a 6/6 flyer with a huge bonus. Tough to beat. Looking at Sam's list, I don't think there's anything that can get him out of this situation. Especially not a hand filled with non-flying creatures.
Now, it doesn't take too many creatures that generate energy to set up kind of a soft lock with Ether Scroll Ancient, where every turn you have enough mana to bounce the board.
Yeah, I actually played a Sealed League last night where I had Ether Scroll Ancient along with Decoction Module that generates additional energy whenever you play a creature, and then some creatures like Sage of Shyla's Claim that generate more energy when they come down. And at some point I was up to like 25 energy.
Wow.
That was a personal best. But yeah, we got into an interesting game where my opponent had Ether Scroll Ancient as well.
Yikes.
And they just turned into a big bounce fest. I love the way that these rares can just turn games upside down and kind of rewrite the rules of Magic in a way.
I guess that the rares that do something really relevant when you're losing are some of the most powerful rares to have in a sealed pool. While we obviously love winning and we love cards that help us finish games faster, the ones that we can play when we're losing and suddenly be in with a shot, those are the ones that create exciting games of Magic. And right now, Gary Wong has pushed Sam Black down to just a single point of life, and with the number of creatures he has on the board compared to what's going on the other side of things, I think he's going to be in good shape for this game 1.
Yep. Self-Assembler coming down, searching for another copy. He has 2 in his list, right? Yeah, that's a good amount. think it's even better when you have 3 of them, but well, you can't wish for everything.
I guess at some point you don't want more copies, right? It's not just you'll quite happily run 7.
No, like you do have to pay attention to your mana curve. I think 3 copies is kind of the sweet spot. 4 copies, possible, but then you may not have any slots remaining for other 5 drops in the deck. So I wouldn't put too much of a premium on that. But the second one and the third one are quite valuable. Card advantage, always nice. And a 4/4 for 5 mana, even though it isn't amazing, it's serviceable. And it's also an artifact to trigger all kinds of cards that care about that card type.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how that one ends up playing out in draft, because picking up the first one might feel like kind of a risk depending on when you get it in the pack. But the second one obviously is great, the third one also. But we'll get a chance to see how that works out tomorrow. That's when we're going to have our draft rounds. For today, we've got sealed deck. We're kind of halfway-ish through the rounds. This is halfway through round 5, which is halfway through our tournament. We're going to get a chance to look across and see a little bit more Magic from one of our other tables, though, as these guys are figuring out their sideboards for their game too.
Yeah, and some may also have been thinking, what went wrong that game? Could I have done something differently? I don't think there was much. It was mainly that Sam did not draw an answer to the Ether Scroll Ancient. He has eliminated the competition and tidy conclusion in his deck list as ways to deal with it, but just never drew any of those cards.
Yeah.
And we'll just have to hope to either have them in the next game or, well, perhaps hope that he can win the game before any bomb rares come down.
Yeah, I mean, he was a little bit short on lands for some of that game.
Yeah, he had some 5 drops in hand, only 4 lands, that's true.
Though it's worth saying that Ether Scroll Ancient is just a bit of a powerhouse, regardless of which way you slice it, on how many lands people have in play and so on and so forth. So I don't think that he'll mind too much. If you're going to lose to a bomb, then that just happens. He's played enough Magic that he understands how that kind of shakes out.
Yep, and successfully, of course. And Sam Black, 2 Proto Tobates to his name, lots of Grand Prix Tobates, 13 in total already. He's one of the ranked players. Not many of them are even in the building here. And I think this format is also perfect for someone like Sam Black, who is known as a brewer. He likes to build all kinds of wacky decks, and there are so many build-around artifacts in the new set. So many artifacts like Panharmonicon or Etherworks Marvel, even the modules, animation module, decoction module, fabrication module. You can do so much with them, both in constructed, and I'm sure he's brewing up all kinds of crazy options for the Pro Tour next weekend, but also in limited. In sealed deck, you don't have that many options because, well, you just get the pool.
Yeah,
and
you've either got it or you haven't.
But in draft, oh boy, the craziest things have happened already.
Yeah, basically, in draft in this format, and I'm still very much learning the ropes in it. I'm sure that you can take me to school on this one, but I'm looking to ideally open a bomb. If I can't open a bomb, I want to open a really aggressive 2-drop. And if I can't open either of them, then I want to open a cool card that I can build around. Yeah. And there's a good chance that the cool build around actually jumps above the 2-drop as well. It's a really fun format for doing that sort of thing with. For sure.
The first draft that I did, for instance, I took a Metalwork Colossus early. That's the 11/11 with a cost reduction, depending on the converted mana cost of non-creature artifacts that you have, as well as an Incendiary Sabotage, kind of a sweeper where you have to sacrifice an artifact to play it. And then I just picked all the puzzle nuts that I saw.
Yeah.
Ended up with some kind of red-white deck with 4 Metal Spinners puzzle nut, and had to ask the other people in the room, well, how many swamps should I play? I think I had like 9 puzzle nuts in total. Everyone was telling me I may have gone a little too deep, and I probably did, but it was too much fun. It was too hard to pass up. And I did get to play Metalwork Colossus on turn 5. And that's just one of the many examples that you can do in this format. I've been thoroughly enjoying it so far.
But we're now ready to kick things off for Game 2, and we see Inventor's Goggles coming down for Sam Black early on. Now, this is a card that, when I first saw it in this format, I thought it was an expensive piece of equipment that's not going to do too much. And actually, I've come right around on it. Obviously, for Sam right now, without a creature on turn 3, facing down a Narnam Koga, not ideal. But this is a format where you can have some spare mana lying around. And it does turn your creatures from being lackluster into just about good enough.
Mhm. And there are also plenty of artificers around. I think all of the fabricate cards, basically all the cards that generate some kind of artifact tokens, as well as many of the artifact matters cards. Well, that's I'm pretty sure that's an artificer.
Oh, it certainly is. This is one of the combinations that I like a great deal. A Morphist squad with a +1/+1 counter, immediately getting equipped for free with those Inventor's Goggles. Suddenly it goes from being an unassuming 3/1 to a 5/4.
Yes, it does.
And 5/4 Menace is potentially kind of problematic for Gary Wong here.
Mm-hmm. Well, that Narnam Cobra is still gonna get in there. Sam does not want to trade his creature for the death touching snake.
And Wild Wanderer coming along. That's the first island, I would imagine, for Gary Wong, though there's a temptation to get his second green mana. I know that he has got some double green costs in his deck also. He checks out his hand to try and figure out which is the bigger priority, goes for the island.
Yep. Now, if Sam attacks with his Morphist squad on the next turn, Gary could do a triple block in order to trade for it. That would be kind of a defensive play. Or Gary could just take the damage and then hope to attack back with his creatures. Now, it is unlikely that the creatures that Gary currently has, the Wild Wanderer, the 3/2, and all the servo tokens are gonna be able to attack into whatever Sam plays on this turn. Oh, but that changes things. Hazardous conditions. Sweep the board.
Almost sweep the board. There's exactly one creature that's got a
Yeah.
+1/+1 counter on it. That happens to be Sam's Morphist squad. It gets stuck in. Big play there for Sam
That
Black.
is a blowout. Wow.
Yeah, hazardous conditions. There are definitely occasions where it's infest. It's killing your creatures, it's killing their creatures. But Green-Black has a lot of ways of making +1/+1 counters. It
Mhm.
makes some of the fabricate decisions go a little differently, but also it just means that, yeah, you can do plays exactly like that one. A one-sided Wrath of God is a big deal.
Yep. Yeah, and it worked out exactly as Sam Black was hoping. Many of the 4-drop creatures in this format have more than 2 toughness. Wild Wanderer kind of one of the exceptions.
Eddie Trailhawk here coming from Gary Wong alongside another Nanam Cobra. So he has got an energy or two there to work with, and that energy will mean that he can jump some of his creatures and give them flying when he attacks with the Eddie Trailhawk.
Now, I believe that Sam has an appetite for the natural in hand, so he could attack. All right. He could attack with his Morphist squad, and then if Gary Wong goes for a double block, right, because it has menace, then he can destroy the Narnam Cobra at instant speed. But he says, well, I'm not even interested in trying to take down an Eddie Trailhawk for free. I just want to keep attacking.
Yeah,
And,
get the damage in.
Yep.
And Self-Assembler coming down, finding another copy of Self-Assembler for Gary Wong.
And keeping back the Eddie Trailhawk, again, in the hope of lining up a double block to take down the Morphist squad.
So there are some powerful rares in hand for each of these players. I caught a little sneaky peek of Nissa in hand for Sam Black. He's not quite got the land yet to use it, but by drawing a card there, he might get closer. On the other side of things, I believe that Gary Wong has a copy of Fumigate ready to go.
Oh, wow.
Now, he probably won't be too happy to see a vehicle come along in the face of his big mass removal spell. Mass removal looks a little different when you've got Fumigate, when you've got vehicles involved.
Yeah, it's also a little awkward that Gary played a Self-Assembler. So now Sam knows that Gary Wong has another Self-Assembler in hand. This means that if Gary chooses not to play anything on the next turn, right, to just set up a better Fumigate, just hope that Sam plays a bunch of creatures, and then you play Fumigate to clear the board and then play the rest of your hand afterwards. Yeah, that's not going to work, because if Gary doesn't play the Self-Assembler, then Sam will understand that something is up. So thanks to that, it's likely that Gary Wong will just have to keep adding stuff to the board, including that Self-Assembler, as to not give away what he has in hand. And ultimately, when somehow he falls behind on the board, or maybe if Sam Black activates the Beaumont Bazaar Barge on Gary's turn, right? If Gary would say attack with the Self-Assembler here, and Sam is like, oh, that's a 4/4, I can just activate my Beaumont Bazaar Barge and block it, then Gary would get an excellent opportunity to use the Fumigate to clear all the permanents on Sam's side. Well, except for the Inventor's Goggles that will stay around.
Good old Goggles. We like him. So there is the 5th land there for Sam Black, so this opens the door to Nissa coming along and making life problematic for Gary Wong. More cards that are not particularly the sort of things he wants to see when he's got Fumigate.
Yep. Yeah, right now, well, if the Nissa will come down, Gary might be thinking, man, I had this Fumigate, why didn't you just play a creature on turn 4, a creature on turn 5? But does Nissa actually do something? Because Gary, he did get 2 energy from Eddy Trailhawk, or at least he should have. It's possible that he missed the trigger because I don't see any dice on the table, but generally speaking, he should have 2 energy. And if Sam just plays Nissa here to, I don't know, make a 5/5, for instance, then Gary can just fly in with his Eddy Trailhawk, give his self-assembler flying, and potentially take down Nissa.
So
It wouldn't take it down completely, but at least close.
So Multiform Wonder coming down, getting some extra energy for Sam Black. He immediately uses the big rare to crew his vehicle. Beaumont Bazaar Barrage coming alongside the Morphist squad. Big attacks here from Sam Black, and with Gary Wong at just 10 life, he has to weigh up his blocks pretty carefully.
Yeah, given that Gary has Fumigate in hand, and given that Multiform Wonder is such a powerful creature, Gary will be happy to take down the Beaumont Bazaar Barge and likely play Fumigate, if not on this turn, then on the next one. Gary did fall down to 5 life in the attack. Yeah, and he will have trouble to line up enough creatures against the menacing Morphist squad, so he pretty much has to play Fumigate here.
The life gain pretty relevant here for Gary Wong.
Yeah, plus 4 life.
So it looks like Sam Black is considering giving his Multiform Wanderer -2 toughness a number of times, so that at least Gary doesn't get to gain the life for it dying to Fumigate.
That's kind of a sweet play. Yeah, Sam doesn't have many ways in his deck to use energy, so those energy counters are not that valuable for him. And yeah, he'd rather just deny another life gain. The little seen uses of Multiform Wanderer, I would say.
So Sam plays his 6th land. Here comes Nissa. Immediately goes up to 6 loyalty to turn a forest into a 5/5. It attacks. Now it is a 5/5 creature until Sam's next turn, so in principle there could be a removal spell for that forest at some point, but the important bit is Nissa on 6 loyalty, that threatens her ultimate, and her ultimate ability, it gets pretty out of hand actually. Every time you play a land, you get to draw a card.
It's good, but at this point with Gary at 3 life, I think the +1 ability is even more threatening. It can actively turn into kind of an abyss where Gary is forced to jump block with one of his creatures every turn. I mean, even if there would be an Ether Scroll Ancient, right, the 6/6 flyer, then Sam could just animate a forest, equip the Inventor's Goggles to a forest. I'm not sure how that works from a flavor perspective. I guess you just put it on the tree.
Yeah, you hang them on the tree.
Yeah, and then you have a 6/7 that can still attack into the 6/6 Ancient. So this is a tough spot for Gary. Like he's not really able to pressure Nissa. He'll have to put down chump blockers every turn from now on if Sam activates the +1. And well, in case the board clogs up, then the ultimate.
I mean, there's also just
huge.
-3. Let's get back Multiform Wonder is not awful. I mean, I think there's an argument to say that making lots of 5/5s is just better, but
Yep. Or the hazardous conditions.
It's just permanents that get brought back with Nissa. I mean, I say just. There's still plenty of good options.
It doesn't do everything.
It just
Fair
does
enough.
almost everything.
Yeah.
Gets back other Planeswalkers, which can be pretty nice. Though obviously that's more of a constructed level play. Eddy Trailhawk #2 joining its compatriot in the graveyard.
And that's an ambitious
Aetherborn coming down. One of the artificers that kind of feels more just like a big old fighter. Coming down, immediately getting equipped with the Inventor's Goggles, because as a Fabricate creature that's not an artifact, it is an artificer, so a little bit just more powerful in general. And Gary Wong says, well, we're going to have to go to game 3 because you got that one all locked up.
Yep, well, that game went perfectly well for Sam Black.
And Gary Wong has a few extra things to think about after that game. He saw a lot more of Sam's deck in Game 2 than he did in Game 1. It'll be interesting to see how he sideboards as a result.
The hazardous conditions in particular was the key turning point in that game, in my view. Like it took down Gary's 4-drop, 2-drop, and 3-drop essentially. So generating card advantage, generating a mana advantage, giving Sam an edge in the damage race. And if I'm Gary, I might look into boarding out some of my 2 toughness creatures. Like the Wild Wanderer certainly doesn't match up all that well against hazardous conditions. On the other hand, if he wants to keep his blue splash, well, I mean, it's not really a splash for a double blue card, but if he wants to keep the mana of his 3-color deck reasonably consistently, well, he may just have to keep it in his deck. But yeah, these are some of the things that you may have to think about while boarding, as we see a quick live look into another match.
Yeah, Chris Fennell, one of the players that's, again, known for his prowess when it comes to playing limited matches. Already got a couple of artifact creatures in play, that Chief of the Foundry pumping his Nanam Cobra. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, Thien Nguyen, he's just got the lone 2/2 in play there.
An eager construct, very eager to get on the battlefield, very eager to block a Nanam Cobra. All good.
And a Sky Skiff coming down for Chris Fennell. That one's kind of a nice one when it's getting pumped up by Chief of the Foundry.
It's somewhat surprising that Chris did not attack with the Chief there, actually, because it's a 2/3 and Thien had a 2/2. But maybe Chris was afraid of some kind of pump spell, like Ornamental Courage, giving +1/+3.
And bear in mind, this is Game 3 as well, so he'll have an idea of what colors that Ether Hub represents. There could have been white, perhaps, for impeccable timing, or any number of different bits and bobs going on. It's all vehicles all the time, though, for Chris Fennell as he gets in with Fleetwheel Cruiser.
And maybe if there is some servo token coming down on the next turn, I would love to see the servo token hop into the Sky Skiff and then have a Skiff pilot a Fleetwheel Cruiser.
Well, that cruiser's malfunctioning. He may need to get an aviary mechanic or something to try and fix that one. I love that flavor interaction.
Perfect. They must have picked the names just for that reason.
Yeah, there's a lot of flavor wins in this set, and a few slight strange flavor situations involving vehicles getting equipped with things. But all told, a solid A-.
So Chris has a Fairgrounds Trumpeter along with several Fabricate creatures in his hand. So the Trumpeter, it starts as a 2/2, but then at the end of your turn, whenever a +1/+1 counter was put into any creature you control, you put a +1/+1 counter on the elephant. So if Chris will add some Fabricate creatures and put the +1/+1 counters on them over the course of the next few turns, that elephant could grow quite quickly.
Yeah, I found that it's not too difficult to find enough +1/+1 counter support to make it a pretty good card. Like, I'm very happy to draft it. I'm very happy to play it in my sealed. Looking at Chris's hand, he definitely has ways of doing that that are going to be pretty powerful.
Yeah, Thien had the option of attacking with his Architect of the Untamed. He did not do that, possibly because he's afraid of a build to last, like a pump spell that would take it down with a block in combat, or because he just wants to have it around to crew his Ballista Charger.
Hunt the Weak with Sky Skiff gaining a +1/+1 counter. I like that one. I mean, a 3/4 flyer, a lot scarier than a 2/3.
It also worked with the Fairgrounds Trumpeter. Right? Green has a lot of ways to put +1/+1 counters on creatures, like Hunt the Weak, but there's also Kujar Steed Sculptor, there's the Fabricate creatures. So we'll see how big that elephant gets, but it's already a 3/3, and there are no signs of it slowing down.
Yeah, this vehicle deck, it's all about going fast.
Looking at Chris's hand, he does have Wisp Weaver Angel that allows you to blink one of your creatures. So
another way of dealing with the malfunction, right?
Yeah, you could animate the Fleetwheel Cruiser and then just blink it. Then the malfunction will fall off. That's why these kinds of cards malfunction, but to a lesser extent also Revoke Privileges haven't been as good as I initially expected in this format. Too many ways to blink them, like the aviary mechanic, bouncing it back to your hand, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, something like Revoke Privileges is still something I would be looking to take relatively high in draft. But yes, you're right, it's not as unassailable as it might be in some formats.
Mm-hmm. So the obvious play for Chris is to just make more creatures, perhaps put a counter on the Propeller Pioneer to possibly grow the Fairgrounds Trumpeter. Oh, but there's a response.
Interesting.
Insidious Will, that will counter the spell. It has all kinds of other abilities, most notably you can redirect the targets of certain spells, which is quite potent when opponents try to play removal spells on your creatures. You can just redirect it, or basically change the target to one of their own creatures. But at worst, it's a 4-mana counter.
Yeah, if it was just a 4-mana counter, that would be pretty bad. But
the crazy thing is that it's like a double blue card, and Thien has no islands on the battlefield. He just uses Prophetic Prism and Ether Hub. Yep, there's a lot of nice mana fixing in the format.
So immediately getting things going with his vehicle there, getting stuck in.
Ballista Charger is still one of the better vehicles. Crew Tree is a cost that you can do, and it also has a built-in evasion for servos in a way, where it pings 1 damage whenever you attack. Can also ping down stuff like Foundry's Creature, like a 2/1 flyer. So lots of value in there.
Well, there is an Aviary Mechanic in hand for Chris Fennell, so even though he's a little bit tight on land, he's going to have a way of getting that Fleet Wheel Cruiser back on the road.
Yep. But at this point, Chris has to start thinking about, not so much card advantage, but getting back on board, because Thien has way more power and mana worth of creatures on his side. Even though Chris is still slightly ahead in the race in terms of life totals, he won't really be able to win on this turn, and he will have to make sure that he doesn't die to Thien's next attack.
Yeah, Chris getting in a little attack here. We've heard that the main match with Sam Black and Gary Wong is just about ready to go. I just want to see a tiny bit more of this one, just to see whether or not Chris can turn it around. It feels to me like we're at kind of a pivotal point for him.
Yeah, it may easily be over on the next turn. Keeping back the Sky Skiff as a blocker for the Snare Topter. I like that, especially when Chris has so many more cards in hand than Thien, then you can play a bit more defensively. Obviously picking up the Fleet Wheel Cruiser. It also tells Thien that he can't really make too many aggressive attacks, because then he's at a risk of dying to the 5/3 Haste Trampler.
So Ether Theorist coming down for Tianwei, and he still doesn't have an island in play, but that's not really holding him back. Finds a 5th land there, Chris Fennell. He's still only got the 1 green source, but that's certainly not made it feel like he's not playing a real game here at all.
Mm-hmm. So right now, the Sky Skiff can easily get in there. Thien doesn't really have good blocks for that. And the swing back from the Snare Topter, Christopher can take that.
What Chris doesn't know is the extra pressure he has on here is that he either wins it this turn, or I think that we may have to jump back to our main match. I don't want to miss too much of Sam Black here, but I'm willing to give Chris the opportunity to showboat a little bit for the camera. Looks like there's an impeccable timing in hand here, which is one of the ways that he can scupper attacks from Nguyen, or indeed blocks.
Yeah, but Chris is not going to win this turn, not when there's a Ballista Charger back to block.
Looks like, yeah, even the attack for 3 in the air not working out with blossoming defenses, meaning that the 1 blocker that Nguyen has is big enough.
And I think this is excellent timing by Thien. Looks like he's playing the Blossoming Defense before blockers. So that means that currently Snare Topter isn't blocking yet, and therefore Chris cannot play Impeccable Timing in response. If Thien had blocked with Snare Topter first and then played Blossoming Defense, then Chris could have responded with Impeccable Timing. So looks like Thien has already seen Impeccable Timing in the previous game, or maybe he just knows that it's in the format.
Yeah.
And times that pump spell perfectly to play around it.
So effectively,
Nice
both players had impeccable timing. It's just that one of them had the card and one of them had the knowledge.
Well said.
All right, well, let's head back to our main match between Sam Black and Gary Wong here. Looks like this match between Chris Fennell might take a little bit longer. We don't want to miss too much of our main match. Oh, wow. We actually just heard that the Sam Black match was super quick in its game 3. So that one's already finished. We'll try and get a result for you on that one. But we are going to get a chance to see the end of this game between Thien Nguyen and Chris Fennell. So, big plays going on here. Sam Black was able to take down the final game, and that one, by the sounds of it, he was able to get down an early threat, and it was just a bit of a spotty draw from Gary Wong. So one of those games that we don't necessarily love to happen in Limited, but it's definitely a part of the format. Sometimes you get a 2-drop, and you just get to ride it to victory.
Mm-hmm. Well, this game is looking like it can still take quite a while, because now there's an Imperial Voyager on Thien's side. That's another blocker, so it will be tough for Chris Fennell to attack into this. All of his creatures will get blocked and taken down by the 6/6 Ballista Charger. And there's also the Kujar Seed Sculptor that can profitably block both the Aviary Mechanic and the Eager Construct. Yeah, I don't really see any good attacks for Chris here. He drew Takedown. Right, that's 4 damage to a flyer, most notably. Relevant, but still doesn't really help him set up good attacks, it looks like. Chris he's close. Thien is down to 4 life.
And no cards in hand.
Mm-hmm. But I don't think Chris will be able to get there on this turn. I guess Chris could attack with like the Fairgrounds Trumpeter and the Aviary and the Visionary Augmenter. And then Thien has to block one of them, most likely with Ballista Charger. After which Chris could play Impeccable Timing on the Ballista Charger to take it down, to set up better attacks on next turn. But then you still trade 2 for 1. It's not that profitable. And Chris may also need that Impeccable Timing to take down a flyer later on.
And the big thing that Chris has going for him, even though he's not able to attack yet, he's the one with cards in hand. He's the one with a life total buffer.
Yes.
He's got a way of getting through this. It just might take a few turns to get there.
Mm-hmm. All right, there's the Cruiser, and now Chris has 2 mana up for Impeccable Timing. Because Fleetwheel Cruiser has Trample, this means that Thien will, first of all, has to line up a lot of toughness for it. And Thien...
He reveals that he just had a land in hand there. That was enough to deal with things. There's some nice sideboarding going on there from Chris Fennell. He shows the takedown. That was not in his main deck. It's one that he'd spied that there were enough flyers in Nguyen's deck that it made sense to have a little bit more removal for flyers. And of course, there's the Impeccable Timing. He's like, you know what? I did have it. Good play from you earlier on, but ultimately, it's still a powerful card. It's still one that was relevant for him going on here.
Yeah, Chris didn't even need those tricks. In his attack, he had more than enough, or not really more than enough. He had enough attackers compared to Thien's blockers to make sure that at least 2 of them would be unblocked. With all these vehicles, it can sometimes seem like you have more creatures or potential blockers than you actually have, because you still need to tap a creature to crew it, and then it cannot block something else.
So, no great surprises to see that Chris Fennell, 5-0, one of the players that is just renowned for his limited game, and within the team that he's on working for the Pro Tour, he's one of the people that the rest of the team are looking to for guidance in terms of what's our plan, where do we want to go, and this one of the great places to get practice before we finish things up here. So that is the end of our round 5. We will, of course,
Kaladesh is now available on Magic Duels. Build endless deck combinations with more than 1,000 unique cards. Play through hours of story with 50 campaign missions. Play Magic Duels free today on Xbox One, Steam, iPad, and iPhone. Optimism, innovation, and the spirit of creativity fill these pages, lavishly illustrated with the award-winning art of Magic the Gathering. Welcome to Kaladesh, a vibrant, beautiful plane where anything is possible. Join the heroic planeswalkers of the Gatewatch as they explore the Inventor's Fair and let your imagination soar alongside thopters and airships crafted by the best artificers in the multiverse.